Imagine being handed a set of coordinates. Nothing else. No map, no country name, no context. Just numbers on a page. And then being told to describe what's there, not what it looks like from above, but what's inside the building. What's written on the filing cabinets. What the people in that room are thinking about. Sounds impossible. Sounds like science fiction. But for nearly a quarter century, this was an actual job inside the United States government. And the people doing it weren't spies with binoculars. They were psychics. It began, strangely enough, at Stanford Research Institute in 1972. Not in a bunker, not in a military base, in a laboratory. The CIA, at the height of the Cold War, had caught wind of something alarming. Soviet intelligence was reportedly pouring resources into psychic research. The KGB wasn't just spying with satellites and bugs. They were investigating whether the human mind could be weaponized. Think about that. The same agency that was running operations against Moscow, planting agents behind the Iron Curtain, tracking nuclear submarines, that agency genuinely feared the Soviets might develop a psychic advantage. So they did what any rational intelligence agency would do. They funded a research program to find out if psychic abilities were real. Enter Ingo Swann, a painter from Colorado, a Scientologist, and, as it turned out, someone with abilities that defied every known scientific framework of the time. The CIA brought Swann into a controlled laboratory at SRI and gave him a series of tests that were designed to be impossible to fake. Double-blind protocols, scientists who were actively hostile to the premise, controlled targets hidden in sealed envelopes. And Swann kept getting things right, but it was what happened next that changed everything. The researchers at SRI, led by physicists Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff, decided to push further. They asked Swann something that sounds absurd even now. Can you remote view a target that isn't even on Earth? In 1973, NASA's Pioneer 10 probe was en route to Jupiter. No photos existed of Jupiter's rings. They hadn't been discovered yet. Swann closed his eyes and began describing what he saw around the planet. He drew a ring. He described its composition. He insisted it was there. The scientific establishment dismissed it. Jupiter couldn't have rings. Saturn had rings, not Jupiter. Swann was wrong. Except he wasn't. In 1979, the Voyager 1 probe sent back images confirming exactly what Swann had described 6 years earlier, a ring system around Jupiter. Suddenly, the CIA wasn't just curious anymore. They were interested. But the program's most shocking moment didn't involve planets. It involved a man named Pat Price. Price was a former police commissioner from Burbank, California. By all accounts, a grounded, practical man, not the type you'd associate with crystal balls and seances. But when Price sat down for remote viewing sessions at SRI, the results were so precise that the CIA officers monitoring the experiments became genuinely unsettled. Here's what happened. A CIA officer handed Price a set of geographic coordinates, latitude and longitude, nothing else. Price was told nothing about the target. He didn't know what country he was looking at. He didn't know if he was supposed to be describing a city, a mountain range, or an empty field. Price closed his eyes. He began to speak. He described a military facility. He described the layout in detail, the buildings, the security fences, the guard posts. Then he went deeper. He described what was inside one of the buildings, the filing cabinets, the folders inside those filing cabinets, the code names written on those folders. The CIA officer running the session froze, because Price was describing a facility that was so classified, so deeply buried inside the Soviet intelligence apparatus, that even the officers conducting the experiment had no idea what was at those coordinates. Think about the implications of that. The CIA gave Price the wrong coordinates. They made an error. And Price didn't describe the target they thought they were giving him. He described the target they had accidentally given him, and that target turned out to be one of the most sensitive Soviet installations in existence. When the CIA cross-referenced Price's descriptions against their satellite intelligence, the match was so precise that it triggered an internal security investigation. The question they were suddenly asking wasn't, does remote viewing work? It was, How much does Pat Price know and who told him? He knew nothing. He had no prior briefings, no access to classified documents. He was a former police commissioner from California who had just described in excruciating detail a Soviet facility that the CIA had spent years trying to understand. The Price session was the inflection point. Whatever skepticism remained inside the CIA began to crack. The program was formalized, funded, and expanded. It went through a series of code names: Gondola Wish, Grill Flame, Center Lane, Sunstreak, before eventually settling under the umbrella that would become famous decades later, Project Stargate. By 1978, the program had moved from SRY's labs to Fort Meade, Maryland, the headquarters of the National Security Agency. The Army took operational control. This was no longer a research curiosity. This was an intelligence asset. The remote viewers, a small select group of individuals who had demonstrated consistent, verifiable results, were now being tasked with operational intelligence gathering. They were given real targets, hostage locations, missing aircraft, foreign military installations, the kinds of things that, if they got wrong, had real consequences. And here's the part that rarely gets discussed when people talk about Stargate. They weren't wrong very often. In 1984, a remote viewer named Fran Bryan was given a piece of paper with markings on it. Not a map, because maps could give away the location. Just a piece of paper that corresponded to an actual map held by the intelligence officers. She was asked to put a mark where a missing Soviet nuclear bomber had gone down in Africa. The aircraft had crashed somewhere under dense jungle canopy. Satellites couldn't find it. Reconnaissance flights saw nothing. They needed to locate the wreckage before anyone else did, because there was a nuclear weapon on board. Bryan did her work, map dowsing it was called, and put a mark on the paper. Intelligence officers translated that mark to the real map and dispatched a team. They found the bomber within 2 kilometers of the spot she had indicated. When asked about this publicly years later, President Jimmy Carter confirmed the story. A sitting president of the United States, acknowledging on the record that his administration had used psychic intelligence to recover a lost nuclear weapon. But what about the failures? Because there were failures, and understanding those failures is just as revealing as the successes. Remote viewing was never perfectly reliable. The best viewers had accuracy rates significantly above chance, sometimes dramatically so, but no one was right 100% of the time. And in intelligence work, partial information can be worse than no information. If a remote viewer describes a facility that doesn't exist, you waste resources chasing ghosts. If they describe one that does exist, but get the details wrong, you make decisions based on faulty premises. This was the fundamental tension inside Stargate. The results were good enough to keep the program alive for 23 years, but inconsistent enough to keep it controversial within the agency the entire time. In 1995, the CIA commissioned a review of the Stargate program. They brought in the American Institutes for Research, led by statistician Jessica Utz and psychologist Ray Hyman, to evaluate whether remote viewing had produced any actionable intelligence. The review's conclusions were contradictory, and that contradiction is where the real story lives. Hyman, the skeptic, concluded that while the statistical results were genuinely anomalous, there was no evidence the program had produced useful intelligence. Remote viewing might show something real, but it wasn't reliable enough for operational use. Utz, the statistician, came to the opposite conclusion. After analyzing the data, she stated that the existence of remote viewing as a genuine phenomenon was supported by statistically significant evidence. The effect was real. The question was whether it was useful. The CIA chose to listen to Hyman. The program was terminated. The documents were declassified. Over 12,000 pages released to the public. And the official narrative became, "We tried it. It didn't work. We moved on." But here's the strange part. If remote viewing didn't work, if it was genuinely useless, why did the program run for 23 years? Why did it consume $20 million in funding? Why did multiple administrations across both political parties continue to authorize and expand it? The declassified documents themselves tell a more complicated story than the official summary suggests. Session after session, you can read the transcripts of remote viewers describing targets with specificity that defies coincidence. You can see the intelligence reports that were generated from their sessions. You can trace the operational decisions that were influenced by information that had no other source. And then there's the timing of the declassification. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. The Cold War ended. The program was terminated in 1995 and declassified shortly after. Why then? Was it because remote viewing didn't work? Or because the primary adversary it was targeting had ceased to exist, and there was no longer a strategic need to maintain the secrecy? The documents don't answer that question definitively, but they do reveal something else. The CIA never fully walked away from the research. Even after Stargate was officially shuttered, declassified records show that elements of psychic research continued under different program names, different funding streams, different levels of classification. So, what does it mean, really, that the United States government spent 23 years and $20 million studying psychic abilities? At minimum, it means the question was taken seriously at the highest levels of national security, not as a curiosity, not as a fringe experiment, as a potential intelligence asset worth protecting through the entire Cold War. But the deeper implication is this: if remote viewing produced any genuine results at all, and the statistical evidence suggests it did, then our understanding of human consciousness is fundamentally incomplete. Think about what remote viewing requires: information traveling across vast distances without any known physical mechanism, detailed visual descriptions of locations the viewer has never seen, in some cases, descriptions of events that haven't happened yet. None of this fits within our current scientific framework. And yet, the data exists. The transcripts exist. The declassified documents exist. You can read them yourself. The CIA has made them publicly available. The government's own experiments suggest that consciousness may not be confined to the brain in the way we've assumed. That perception may extend beyond the senses, that the boundary between what we call self and what we call world may be far more permeable than our models suggest. Stargate wasn't just about spying, it was about something much stranger. The discovery, accidental, buried in classified files, denied in public, that the mind might not be a closed system. That underneath the everyday reality we navigate, there might be a deeper layer of connection that we don't understand and can't measure, but that works anyway. The program is officially over. The documents are declassified, but the question Stargate asked, can the human mind reach beyond the body, beyond distance, beyond the limits we assume to be absolute? That question is still open, and the answer, buried in those 12,000 pages, might be stranger than the program itself ever admitted.